I only moved into that apartment because the rent was low and the location was perfect. I told myself the weird feeling I got from the building the first day I toured, it was just nerves. I was wrong. My name is Jason. I am 28. Last year I relocated for a new job and ended up renting a one-bedroom unit on the fourth floor of a six-story building in Cincinnati. The complex was older but kept clean. Quiet hallways, decent neighbors, nothing that should have made my skin crawl the way it eventually did. The first week went fine. I set up my furniture, learned which elevator was slower, figured out the laundry schedule, normal stuff. The only thing I noticed early on was that the apartment directly across from mine, Unit 4B, always had its door cracked open, just an inch or two, enough to see a thin strip of darkness inside. I knocked once to introduce myself. Nobody answered. I assumed whoever lived there was private. I moved on. The first strange thing happened during my second week. I came home late from work around 11, stepped off the elevator, and as I walked down the hallway toward my door, I heard my name. Clear as anything, Jason, spoken quietly, almost gently. I spun around. The hallway was empty. The door to 4B was cracked the usual inch. I stood still for a moment, heart thumping, and then told myself it must have been a television through someone's wall. I went inside and double-locked the door. Over the next few days, I started noticing small things. My welcome mat would be turned slightly. Not a lot, just rotated a few degrees from where I left it. One morning, I found a single muddy footprint in the hallway directly in front of my door. Just one, pointed toward my apartment, not away from it. I told myself it was the maintenance crew. I almost believed it. Then came the knock. It was a Tuesday night, close to midnight. 3 slow knocks on my front door. I got up, checked the peephole. Nobody there. But when I looked through it, I could see that the door to 4B was no longer cracked. It was open, fully open, just a rectangle of black where the inside of that apartment should have been. I stood at my peephole for almost 2 minutes. Nothing moved inside that darkness. Then the door slowly swung shut on its own. I barely slept that night. In the morning, I asked the building manager about 4B. He told me it had been vacant for 3 months. He said a tenant moved out suddenly and broke their lease. He did not elaborate and I did not push, but on my way back upstairs I stopped at 4B and pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then, very faintly, I heard breathing, slow and even, like someone deeply asleep just on the other side of the door. I backed away and went to my apartment. I sat on my couch and tried to rationalize it. Old pipes. Sound traveling through walls. I had almost convinced myself when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No area code, just 2 words. You heard. I called the number immediately. It rang once and went to a tone I had never heard before. Not a busy signal. Not voicemail. Just a single low tone that continued until I hung up. I called the police that night. They did a welfare check on 4B. They found nothing inside. No furniture, no personal items. The officer told me the apartment was completely empty. He said the only unusual thing was that the closet door inside was scratched deeply on the inside. Like someone had been clawing to get out. Or clawing to stay hidden. I was out of that building within 2 weeks. I had a new apartment across town by the end of the month. My new place has no cracked doors in the hallway, but some nights I still hear my name spoken quietly, and I cannot tell anymore if it is coming from outside or from somewhere inside my own head. That was just the beginning. The next incident will make you question the shadows in your own room. I still cannot explain how it knew my mother's voice. I still cannot explain a lot of things about that apartment, but what I know for certain is that something was living in the walls of Unit 9. And by the time I realized it had been watching me for weeks, it had already learned too much about me. My name is Megan. I am 31 now. 3 years ago, I was living alone in a small apartment complex in Raleigh, North Carolina. 8 units total, 2 floors, outdoor walkways. My unit was 9, ground floor, end of the building. My neighbor across the walkway was a quiet older woman named Donna, who kept potted plants outside her door. I never had any problems. For about 4 months, I felt completely at home there. It started with sounds I could not place. Soft tapping from inside the wall behind my headboard. Not pipes. Not regular enough for pipes. It had a rhythm that changed. Some nights it was fast, some nights slow. I put a white noise machine by the bed and ignored it. Then one morning I woke up and the white noise machine was unplugged. The cord was coiled neatly on the nightstand. I live alone. I know I did not do that. A few nights later I was on a video call with my mom before bed. We talked for maybe 40 minutes about normal things. Her garden, my job, a recipe she wanted to send me. After I hung up, I went to brush my teeth and heard very clearly from the vent above the bathroom mirror my mother's voice saying my name. Megan. Her exact voice. Her exact way of saying it. My stomach dropped. I stood frozen under that vent for a full minute. It did not say anything else. I started sleeping with the lights on. I started checking under the bed, behind the shower curtain, inside closets. Every night the tapping behind the headboard continued. Sometimes I would knock back just to see what happened. Twice it knocked back the exact same number of times I did. Not immediately. A few seconds later, like something thinking before it responded. One evening I came home from work to find every cabinet in my kitchen hanging open. Every single one. I have 9 cabinets. I stood in the kitchen doorway looking at all of them and felt the air leave my lungs. Nothing inside had been touched or moved. They were just open, waiting. I called my friend Dana and asked her to come stay the night. When she arrived, she walked in, looked at the cabinets, and said she felt immediately like someone else was in the apartment. She could not explain it. She just felt it the moment she stepped through the door. Dana slept on the couch. Sometime around 3 in the morning, she woke me up shaking. She said she had heard a woman's voice come out of the vent near the floor. A voice that said Dana's name, not mine. Dana's. A name I had never spoken aloud in that apartment. A name nothing in those walls should have known. We both left before sunrise. I called the landlord the next morning and told him I needed out of my lease. He pushed back. I told him about the sounds and the voice and the cabinets. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said quietly that the previous tenant of Unit 9 had also broken her lease early. He said she told him the apartment had learned her habits, that it started predicting her schedule. The hallway light outside her door would flicker every single time she was about to leave for work, before she even reached for her keys. He said he had the apartment inspected twice and found nothing. I was out within the week. Dana does not talk about that night. We have never brought it up since. But last month she sent me a text out of nowhere that just said, "It knew my name, Megan." How did it know my name? I did not have an answer. I do not think there is one. If your heart is already racing, take a deep breath, because our final story is the one that no one survived to tell. For 2 weeks I convinced myself I was just sleep deprived, that the things I was seeing in the mirror were tricks of light or tired eyes. Then the reflection smiled at me, and I had not smiled. My name is Ryan. I am 26. About 8 months ago, I was renting a studio apartment in a high-rise in downtown Denver. 14th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the mountains. A bathroom with a large wall-to-wall mirror that ran the full length of the vanity. I remember thinking when I first moved in that it was a beautiful apartment. I remember being happy there for a little while. The first sign came during my 3rd week. I was getting ready for work in the morning, standing at that bathroom mirror, and I noticed my reflection was slightly behind. Like a half-second delay, I blinked. I tilted my head. The reflection caught up and everything looked normal. I told myself I needed sleep. I went to work and came home and did not think about it again. A few nights later, I woke up at 2 in the morning to the sound of movement in my apartment. The studio was all one room with no places to hide, so I turned on the bedside lamp and looked around. Nothing. But the bathroom light was on. I was certain I had turned it off before bed. I got up slowly and looked into the bathroom from the doorway. The light was on and the mirror was fogged, as if someone had recently showered. I had not showered in hours. I touched the mirror surface with one finger and dragged it across. The condensation was real, warm and thick. I did not sleep again that night. The next morning, I noticed the first truly wrong thing. There was a handprint on the inside of my bathroom mirror. I know how that sounds. Mirrors do not have insides, but this print was on the back surface, pressed from behind the glass, visible only at a certain angle when the light hit it just right. 5 fingers. A full palm. Pressed inward, I started avoiding the bathroom mirror. I would brush my teeth with my eyes down, shave by feel, but the apartment was a studio, and I could see it from my bed, that long rectangle of glass at the end of the room, lit faintly by the city light through the windows at night. And at night it started doing things. Small things. My reflection standing when I was lying down. My reflection facing one direction when I was facing another. Never for long. Never when I looked directly at it. Always at the edge of my vision. Gone the moment I turned my head. Then one evening, getting ready to go out to dinner, I stood in front of that mirror and looked at myself. I fixed my collar. I reached up to smooth my hair. I looked at my reflection's eyes, and the reflection smiled, slowly, deliberately. I had not smiled. My face was completely still. My reflection's face was not. I left the apartment immediately. I stood in the hallway outside my door for 10 minutes, heart slamming, telling myself over and over that I had imagined it. I pulled out my phone. I held up the front camera and checked my own face in it. My expression was blank, frightened. Then I made myself smile and the camera reflected it perfectly. The camera was honest. The mirror was not. I called my building super that night, asked about the history of the unit. He told me after some hesitation that the previous tenant had moved out abruptly about 6 months before I moved in. He said the man had told management he could not sleep anymore because he kept seeing someone watching him from the bathroom. He said the man believed something was living inside the mirror, learning to look like him. I covered the mirror with a bedsheet that night and booked a hotel for the following week while I found a new place. On my last morning in that apartment, I went to gather my things and the sheet was on the bathroom floor. The mirror was uncovered, and standing in the doorway looking into it from across the studio, I could see my reflection standing in the bathroom, looking back at me. From inside the room I was not in. The reflection lifted one hand slowly, a wave goodbye. I walked out the front door and I never went back. I have thought about that reflection every single day since. About what it was learning while I lived there. About how long it had been practicing. About whether it is still in that apartment right now. Standing at that mirror waiting for whoever moves in next. 3 apartments. 3 people who felt safe inside their own walls, until something on the other side of those walls decided to reach back. The terrifying thing about these stories is not that they happened in remote or unusual places. It is that they happened in ordinary buildings, on ordinary streets, in units just like yours. The next time your hallway feels a little too quiet. The next time your reflection holds still a half second too long. Remember that you never really know what moves through the space between walls when you are not watching. If these stories kept you up at night, subscribe for more true horror every week. We will be here in the dark, waiting.